A girl with red pigtails tugs on Kai's arm, telling him it's time to move. Another fine shawty gives him a warm, peaceful smile, saying the same. The next day, a cutie dressed in a nun's habit gently holds onto his sleeve, begging him to come with her. Her sister behind her wishes for the same. Another baddie tugs on his sleeve, telling him to go out on a date with her. Our boy got some crazy riz, what the heck. Kai just sighs and tries to focus on his drink. Our boy is locked in, and he ain't no simp. The girl doesn't let up, nearly dragging him away from the table. Our boy's riz stat must be maxed out. Another woman leans in close with a playful grin, clearly up to no good. He closes his eyes and wonders how his life ended up like this. The scene shifts to a dark forest at night, glowing with a strange blue light. A pair of rough bandits stand nearby, looking pretty grumpy. Kai looks around the woods, appearing a bit lost. The bandit boss starts barking orders, pointing at himself. Kai bows and agrees, doing his best to act like a loyal recruit. Once he's alone, he stares at his hands as a grim realization sets in. He clutches his head as a rush of memories floods his mind. He remembers the blinding lights and the sound of a car flipping over. It hits him he's definitely not in the modern world anymore. He looks up at the moon, trying to make sense of his new reality. Everything feels familiar, like the opening screen of Fancy Roomy Fantasy. He checks his body, realizing he's been reincarnated as a minor villain destined to die. A sudden creaking sound from a nearby wagon catches his attention. He walks over and peers through the thick iron bars of a cage. 3 girls are huddled together inside, looking battered and broken. Kai's eyes sharpen as he recognizes exactly who they are. He knows their story. If he follows the game's script, none of them will make it. He pulls out a map, searching for a way to break out of this tragedy. He finds the path through Cadia Forest, leading toward the town of Aldia. He looks back at the cage, his expression hardening. The girls are in bad shape. Karen has a broken leg, Nina is blind, and Remy is burning up with fever. Karen looks up at him with a mix of fear and defiance. Kai steps closer, knowing he has to act before the rest of the gang wakes up. She stares back, surprised that a bandit would even look her way. He sets down a lantern and kneels in front of the iron gate. He tells them he's an intelligence agent and he's finally found them. Karen and Nina exchange a look, completely unsure if they can trust him. Kai tries to sound convincing, even though he's mostly winging it. Karen looks away, defeated, saying she can't even walk with her leg like this. Nina adds that she'd only be a burden since she can't see a thing. They look down at little Remy, who's barely conscious from the sickness. They tell him an escape is impossible in their current state. But as the girls lose hope, Kai reaches out, determined to change all their fates. Kai tells them they have to move now before the rest of the bandits wake up. Karen and Nina huddle around the sick child, looking at him with a mix of hope and fear. He knows this is his only chance to escape the script, and he can't afford any mistakes. He reassures them that he has a safe house nearby, but they need to trust him. He hoists all 3 girls at once and begins the grueling trek through the dark forest. Beads of sweat roll down his face as he pushes his body to the limit. It's an absurd sight, but he doesn't have any other choice if he wants to survive. He can feel Remy's shallow breathing and knows they're running out of time. He checks his minimap, seeing that the town of Aldia is still miles away. They push deeper into the woods, avoiding any paths where they might be spotted. Kai is panting heavily from the weight, but he refuses to stop. Finally, they reach a massive tree with a hidden treehouse built into its branches. Nina is at her breaking point, her face stained with tears. He gently sets them down at the base of the tree and catches his breath. Karen and Nina immediately check on Remy, who's barely holding on. Kai walks up to the hidden door, where a magic circle begins to glow. He activates the security system he personally set up during his time playing the game. The door swings open, flooding the forest floor with a soft blue light. He helps Karen inside, being careful with her mangled leg. Then he guides Nina into the hideout so she doesn't trip on the threshold. They lay the sick girl down on a bed, her face pale and slick with sweat. Kai begins rummaging through the storage crates he left behind in this world. Karen watches him with a suspicious glare, still not quite trusting this agent. He tosses aside some old junk, searching for the one thing that can save them. He opens a hidden compartment, revealing rows of glowing blue potions. He reaches for the very back of the stash, finding something even more valuable. He pulls out a small bottle filled with a swirling purple liquid. Karen's eyes go wide as she recognizes the legendary color. Kai reflects on how many hours he spent grinding just to hoard these items. This is a legendary universal elixir, capable of curing almost any injury or ailment. He hands the bottles over, telling the girls to drink them without delay. He doesn't let on that he has a massive stockpile of these things. The girls just stare at the potions, their hands trembling at the sheer value of what they're holding. Kai kneels down and urges Karen to drink so her leg can heal. He keeps his voice steady, trying to act like this is just another day on the job. Nina starts to sob, wondering if such a miracle can truly be real. She takes a sip, and the magical energy immediately starts flowing through her. Kai then carefully administers the elixir to little Remy. A brilliant purple light fills the room, enveloping the three of them. Remy's eyes flutter open, clear and bright, for the first time in days. Kai smiles, relieved that his endgame items still have their power. Karen and Nina stand up, looking at their healed bodies in absolute shock as the light fades. Nina cries out in joy, her vision finally restored, while Karen marvels at being able to stand on her own feet again. Kai lets out a long, shaky breath, the weight of the day's events finally catching up to him. He tells them to give little Remy some space to rest, while the miracle potion finishes its work. He slumps into a seat in the treehouse, his body aching from the physical exertion. Despite his knowledge of the world, his current body's low stats make even simple tasks feel like a monumental struggle. Karen watches him closely, her suspicions slowly being replaced by a sense of profound debt. The two girls huddle over a worn map, trying to figure out their next move now that they aren't captives. Kai offers a tired smile, glad to see them regaining their composure so quickly. He checks his internal interface, reminded that he's just an average D-rank character compared to his old maxed-out avatar. Nina mentions that, in all her studies, she's only ever heard of one legendary figure capable of using warp magic. Kai sits across from them, listening intently as they discuss the lore of the world he once played as a game. They look down at the map again, the reality of their situation, and the distance to safety weighing heavily on them. Nina's eyes shimmer with a faint purple light, a lingering effect of the legendary elixir that saved her sight. Karen grips the parchment tightly, her mind already racing with plans to protect her friends. She looks up at Kai, her expression hardened by the ordeal they've just survived. Nina observes him with quiet curiosity, wondering what other secrets their mysterious savior might be hiding. On the bed nearby, Remy sleeps peacefully, her fever broken and her strength slowly returning. Kai finds himself a bit flustered under their intense gazes, realizing he's now responsible for their safety. He rubs the back of his neck awkwardly, trying to find the right words to explain their current situation. He knows that the game world he loved has become a harsh reality where one wrong step could be fatal. Karen's gaze is unwavering, her determination fueled by the second chance Kai has given them. He looks at her, his mind filled with the knowledge of future events that haven't happened yet. He stands before them in the quiet treehouse, reflecting on the fact that game knowledge has its limits when real lives are at stake. Nina's wide purple eyes search his face, looking for any sign of the agent he claims to be. The two girls clasp hands, drawing strength from each other as they prepare for the uncertain journey ahead. Kai looks back at them, resolved to use every bit of his game knowledge to ensure they all survive what's coming. Karen takes a moment to look back at the treehouse they've been using as a temporary hideout. Kai starts explaining their next move, though he looks a bit stressed about the whole thing. Nina and Karen just give him a blank stare, clearly not entirely sold on his plan yet. He pulls out a map to show them he actually knows where they're heading. He points out the town of Wafer, their best bet for finding a safe place to rest. The three of them crowd around the map, finally starting to see a way out of this mess. Karen still looks pretty skeptical, but she's at least listening to what he has to say. Kai tries to act professional, but his internal monologue is probably screaming right now. Nina suddenly asks why he's going so far out of his way to help them. She looks at him with genuine curiosity, making it hard for him to look away. Kai tries to play it off with his villain persona, but the blushing totally gives him away. He basically tells them he's just doing what needs to be done, which isn't very villainous of him. He waves his hands around awkwardly, trying to shut down the mushy conversation. Meanwhile, Remy is already zonked out on the bed, exhausted from their journey. Kai gives a massive stretch, finally feeling like he can breathe for a second. He tells them he's heading out, acting like they're just a burden to him. Karen and Nina aren't buying it, they can see right through his tough guy act. He gives them a final nod before stepping out into the night. A bit later, the girls finally get a chance to relax and freshen up. Kai finds a spot to wash off the dirt and grime from their long journey. He slides his jet black helmet back on, shifting back into his intimidating alter ego. With his armor back on, he leads the girls toward the city walls as dawn breaks. They're immediately stopped by a knight who looks ready for a fight. Jet Black just stands there, looking as menacing as ever in his full plate. Karen steps up to set the record straight, explaining that this guy is their hero. The knight's jaw practically hits the floor when he realizes who he's talking to. He's completely stunned that this terrifying figure was the one who saved the girls. He immediately drops into a deep bow, his attitude doing a complete 180. The commander introduces himself, looking up at Kai with massive respect. Nina looks a bit shy about all the sudden attention they're getting from the guards. Inside the helmet, Kai is sweating buckets, hoping he can keep this act up. Karen continues to talk him up, making him sound like some legendary saint. Kai is internally smiling, relieved that the plan is actually working. The commander tries to offer a massive reward, but Kai tells him to just pay it forward. He's internally facepalming at how much this mysterious hero thing is escalating. He raises a hand to stop the guy from offering him half the kingdom. Karen and Nina can't help but giggle at how much he's struggling with the praise. Little Remy even gives the scary armor guy a big hug, which is pretty adorable. The commander watches them leave, convinced he's just met a literal angel in black armor. He bows one more time, his face full of gratitude as they head into the city. Kai is just relieved the encounter is over, trying to walk away as naturally as possible. He finally ditches the armor and heads into the busy streets, blending back into the crowd. The knights are still buzzing about the mysterious hero who saved the Duke's daughter. The commander looks like he's aged 10 years just thinking about the encounter. Jet Black has become a name that commands instant respect and a lot of fear. The soldiers can't stop talking about how terrifyingly powerful he seemed. Rumors are flying that he's some kind of demon conqueror who leaves nothing but skulls in his wake. The knight leader is sweating bullets, hoping he never has to cross paths with him again. Despite the scary rumors, the image of him protecting the girls is stuck in everyone's mind. The commander tries to keep his men focused, but even he can't hide his nerves. One of the guards looks like he's just glad he wasn't the one on duty when Jet Black arrived. The commander lets out a long, weary sigh, feeling the weight of the situation. Everyone is wondering who this guy really is and where he came from. He tries to wave off the gossip, but the legend of Jet Black is already taking on a life of its own. Along with the rescue, the mysterious knight left behind some seriously high-grade items. The younger knights find the whole thing exciting, laughing about the crazy story. But for the guy in charge, this is a total political and security nightmare. He knows that having someone that powerful, wandering around, is a huge deal. First, there's Karen Dior Aldi, the daughter of a high-ranking duke and one of the girls he saved. Then there's Nina Qualier-Ansage, a soft-spoken nun from a legendary religious bloodline. And finally, Remy Trelia Alblera, the daughter of a massive commercial tycoon. These three aren't just random kids, they're some of the most influential people in the kingdom. And they were all rescued by a guy who supposedly solo cleared a level 8 dungeon. Back in the city, Kai is just trying to live his life without being recognized. He walks through the town square, keeping his head down as much as possible. The streets are busy, which is perfect for someone trying to blend into the background. Inside his head, though, he's totally panicking about how much attention he's getting. Every time he hears people whispering, he wonders if they're talking about him. He tries to look casual, but he feels like a walking alarm bell. He starts second-guessing everything, even his own equipment. He goes over his inventory, making sure nothing he's wearing screams, legendary hero. He really just wants a quiet life, but his meta-knowledge is making that impossible. He flashes back to the moment the Duke's younger daughter clung to his leg in gratitude. The reward was insane. They even offered him a massive villa as a thank you. The red-haired Duke was a complete mess, bawling his eyes out as he hugged Karen. He couldn't stop crying, overwhelmed by the fact that his daughter was safe. It was a pretty emotional scene, though it was mostly just the Duke sobbing uncontrollably. Karen was just happy to be home, though she clearly hasn't forgotten her savior. Kai even used one of his precious universal elixirs on them, which is a total flex. Karen looks back on the whole thing with a mix of shock and total admiration. The Duke even handed over the official family seal, a reward most people would kill for. Karen is still trying to process everything that's happened since they were rescued. Her father eventually managed to pull himself together, though he's still pretty shaken up. Kai and Karen are still hanging out, but he's clearly feeling the pressure of her expectations. The Duke still can't quite wrap his head around who this mysterious hero really is. Karen is convinced there's more to him than just a passing traveler. To them, Jet Black isn't just a man. He's a legend that shouldn't even exist in the open. The Duke starts connecting dots that aren't even there, assuming the worst about Kai's origins. He imagines Kai hiding a dark, powerful secret behind his simple appearance. Karen tries to steer the conversation, but her father is already too deep into his own theories. They recall the tales of his strength, how he stood against overwhelming odds without flinching. Flashbacks of Kai guiding the girls safely home only add to the mystery of his character. The Duke slams his hand down, convinced he's finally figured out the truth. He's sweating at the mere thought of what a man like that could represent for the kingdom. Karen is startled by her father's intense reaction to his own wild speculation. He believes Kai belongs to a shadowy imperial organization tasked with maintaining secret order, an elite group supposedly made up of the strongest treasure hunters and warriors in the world. To the Duke, every single move Kai made must have been part of a larger, hidden agenda. He urges Karen to be careful, as dealing with such a person is like playing with fire. Karen looks a bit overwhelmed by the weight of her father's paranoia. Meanwhile, the rest of the capital is still blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in the Duke's mind. The Duke is certain that other powerful families like the Ansages and Albleras will feel the same pressure. He knows that a man of that caliber appearing out of nowhere will change the entire political landscape. The leaders of the major houses will soon be scrambling to either recruit or neutralize this Jet Black. Oblivious to all this high-stakes political drama, Kai is busy stuffing his face with a delicious steak. The shopkeeper can't help but laugh at the contrast between Kai's appetite and his intimidating aura. He's genuinely surprised by how normal and down-to-earth Kai seems while eating. "I knew it," the shopkeeper cheers, relieved that his scary guest is actually quite polite. Kai takes a sip of his drink, finally starting to relax after a very long day. But just as he's getting comfortable, the sound of a heavy door creaking open puts him on edge. A stern-looking knight in full silver armor enters the pub, looking like he means business. Kai and the shopkeeper freeze, both wondering why a soldier would show up now. Their eyes go wide as they realize this might not just be a casual visit. Kai instantly goes into full panic mode, terrified that his quiet life is already over. The shopkeeper is equally stressed, hoping his establishment isn't about to become a crime scene. The knight scans the room with a gaze that feels like it could cut through stone. The shopkeeper tries to play it cool, laughing nervously while hoping the knight just wants a drink. Kai is practically vibrating with anxiety, ready to bolt at the slightest provocation. Thoughts of Nina in the church flash through his mind. He really doesn't want to deal with that mess. He starts praying to every god he knows, desperately wishing he was just invisible. The shopkeeper forces a smile, but he's sweating just as much as Kai is. Suddenly, a female knight with a sharp gaze kicks the door open, demanding attention. In a total reflex move, Kai dives headfirst under the table to hide. The shopkeeper lets out a strangled sound, trying to hide his shock at Kai's sudden disappearance. The female knight looks around the pub, her presence filling the entire room with tension. The shopkeeper looks like he's about to have a heart attack from the sheer stress of it all. Kai's mind is a whirlwind of panic, his eyes literally spinning as he tries to disappear into the floorboards. The shopkeeper looks down at him, caught between his own fear of the knights and his utter bafflement at Kai's sudden cowardice. A wave of pure, paralyzing terror washes over Kai as he realizes there's nowhere left to hide. Nina is finally relaxing in her room after the miracle. Her sister Marie stops by to check in on her and see how she's recovering. She looks much better now, comfortably sitting back in her nightgown as they catch up. Marie lets out a tired sigh, clearly having a lot on her mind after a long day of dealing with the family drama. The sisters settle in for a long talk. Marie has some interesting news about their father's reaction to Nina's savior, the mysterious man known as Jet Black. She explains that their dad told her all about his recent meeting with the man in the armor. Nina's eyes go wide when she hears that the guy used a legendary elixir just to restore her sight. She can't wrap her head around why someone would waste something so valuable on her. Marie gets serious, thinking back on how the Duke was actually shaking when he met the guy in person. She explains that their father thinks Jet Black is some kind of monster, but Nina just can't see her hero as anything but a saint. Marie gives her a playful wink, teasing her about her obvious interest in the Mystery Knight. Nina immediately gets flustered and pouts, trying her best to act like it's no big deal. Marie just smiles, happy to see her sister finally acting like a normal girl again. She thinks back to when Nina was still dressed as a nun, searching desperately for any sign of him. The teasing doesn't stop, and Nina clearly can't handle the embarrassment of it all. Later, the two of them take a walk through the palace halls, still talking about the man of the hour. Over at the local pub, the shopkeeper is busy cleaning up and getting ready for the usual evening rush. The commoners are all chatting away, blissfully unaware of the legendary figure sitting right in their midst. Kai is sitting at the bar in his civilian clothes, looking completely drained from living a double life. The shopkeeper points a finger at him, asking if he's heard the crazy rumors about some high-ranking hero in armor. Kai just sweats, trying his best to act like an average guy who doesn't know anything about it. The shopkeeper gives him a lecture about staying far away from that kind of high-stakes noble drama. He brings up the massive pile of gold that the savior reportedly received as a reward. Kai nearly jumps out of his skin. The rumors are starting to get a little too close to the truth for comfort. The shopkeeper just laughs it off, joking that an ordinary guy like Kai could never be some big-shot hero. He keeps laughing at the idea, while Kai is just relieved that his cover is still intact for now. Kai finally lets out a tired sigh and decides it's time to head home. He waves goodbye as he steps out into the city, leaving the shopkeeper to his jokes. He walks through the town, grabbing a quick snack while he tries to process his new reputation. He stops in the middle of the street, looking up at the grand clock tower as the day starts to wind down. The sunset paints the entire town red as the tower chimes in the distance. A little later, Kai is inside a massive palace, looking extremely nervous about being in such a fancy place. He makes his way up a grand staircase, feeling totally out of place in his civilian clothes. He reaches the top and stops when he notices someone waiting for him. A noble woman in an elegant black gown and a delicate mask is standing by the railing. She turns to face him, and it turns out to be Marie, looking very different from her casual self. Kai is completely struck by her beauty, losing his train of thought entirely. She gives him a small, mysterious smile as she watches him approach. They stand together on the balcony, looking out over the evening sky. She starts to speak, likely thanking him again for everything he's done for her family. From up here, they have a bird's eye view of the city as the sun finally disappears. Kai looks out at the horizon, realizing that his quiet life is officially a thing of the past. He looks back at her with a soft smile, finally accepting that he's become a living legend in their eyes. Kai is still out on the balcony with Marie, who's still wearing her mask. He's trying his best to act natural, but the tension is definitely there. He starts to sweat a little, wondering if she can tell how nervous he really is under this calm exterior. He manages to crack a nervous smile, hoping to keep the conversation going without slipping up. Marie watches him with stars in her eyes, clearly moved by his humility and his kind words. Kai turns back to look at the city, the orange glow of the sunset making the moment feel way more dramatic than he intended. Something he says seems to surprise her, making her let out a little gasp of disbelief. Meanwhile, down in the city streets, a group of palace guards are frantically searching for the man who saved the nobility. Marie takes a breath and closes her eyes, enjoying the cool breeze on the balcony. Kai just stares out at the rooftops, probably wishing he could just teleport back home and avoid all this attention. A fancy carriage rolls through the town, signaling that the high society drama is only just beginning. Kai turns around when he hears someone approaching, his expression shifting from calm to pure surprise. He quickly adjusts and gives a warm, polite smile that would make anyone trust him instantly. Marie can't help but smile back, her eyes crinkling behind her mask as she talks to her hero. She stands tall in her elegant gown, looking every bit the powerful duke's daughter she really is. Kai looks at her with a serious expression, starting to realize just how much of an impact he's had on these people's lives. Later that night, Marie meets up with her sister Nina by their carriage to head back to the estate. Nina is full of energy, her pigtails bouncing as she tells Marie about all the rumors she's heard. She suddenly grabs Marie's hand, her eyes wide with shock as she hears Marie's side of the story. Marie starts taking off her gear, looking a bit worn out after such a long and eventful evening. She gives her sister a gentle, knowing smile, clearly amused by Nina's over-the-top reaction. Nina looks completely flustered, her face turning bright red as she tries to process the news. She can't stop thinking about the man's civilian face, comparing it to the legend of Jet Black. Marie just laughs at her, enjoying the chance to poke fun at Nina's obvious little crush. Nina tries to defend herself, but Marie is already one step ahead, making her even more embarrassed. The carriage finally arrives at a massive stone fortress that serves as one of their family's estates. Marie looks out the window with a serious gaze, her mind still stuck on her conversation with Kai. Nina calls out to someone nearby, her voice sounding a lot more determined than it did a few minutes ago. Back inside the carriage, the two sisters keep talking, trying to piece together the identity of their savior. Nina remembers what her friend Karen said about the man's appearance, and everything is starting to add up. She looks out the window, watching the city pass by while she plans her next move. Outside, the carriage driver keeps a close watch while Nina peers through the glass with an intense look. Marie looks a bit worried now, seeing just how obsessed Nina is becoming with finding this man. Nina puts a finger to her lips, telling Marie to stay quiet so she can focus on the plan. Her red eyes flash with determination. She's not going to stop until she has all the answers. Marie starts to walk away toward the palace, but Nina is already on her heels, ready for more. Nina suddenly breaks into a run, charging down the stairs as she chases after a new lead she just thought of. She stops at the balcony overlooking the night city, taking a moment to catch her breath. Across town, the Hunters Guild is still a hive of activity even at this late hour. The guildmaster, Garag, is sitting in his office looking like he hasn't slept in 3 days. He's going through a stack of reports that are giving him one massive headache. One report details how a single warrior rescued the daughters of the most powerful families from certain doom. Garag looks completely overwhelmed, knowing that the arrival of such a powerful player is going to turn the guild upside down. On Garag's desk, reports are piling up like a mountain, each one more unbelievable than the last. Garag looks out at his guild members, his eyes bloodshot from the sheer weight of the news. He can't stop thinking about the report of Jet Black saving a young girl from the clutches of the Red-Freed bandits. The little girl had reached out to the towering, armored warrior, seeing him not as a monster, but as a savior. Her mother had bowed nearly to the floor, her voice trembling as she apologized for the trouble her daughter had caused. Reading about such a high-level feat makes Garag break out in a cold sweat. Suddenly, the doors burst open, and Liffy storms into the room with an urgent look on her face. She slams her hands down on the guildmaster's desk, demanding to know what's going on with the new arrival. Garag can only stare back, feeling like he's caught in the middle of a storm he can't control. Meanwhile, in the main hall, Jet Black stands silently at the counter, his presence alone silencing the entire room. Garag manages to force a laugh, trying to play it cool, even though he's practically shaking. The other hunters in the room can't stop whispering, their eyes glued to the legendary figure in their midst. Garag starts to feel the pressure as the rumors continue to fly, realizing that his quiet branch is about to become very busy. He starts explaining the situation, gesturing frantically as he tries to keep some semblance of order. Jet Black remains motionless, his expressionless helmet giving nothing away. Garag gives a nervous grin, hoping he hasn't accidentally offended the man who just single-handedly saved the nobility. A question from the armored warrior leaves the guildmaster completely stumped for a second. He quickly recovers, laughing it off and waving his hand as if everything is perfectly under control. For a moment, Garag's eyes narrow as he truly observes the man standing before him, sensing a power he can't fully grasp. He looks up at Jet Black from behind his desk, feeling incredibly small despite his own high rank. His face hardens as he realizes that the balance of power in the city has shifted overnight. He thinks back to the days of legendary hunters, men who walked with the same quiet confidence that Jet Black possesses now. He admits that even with all his experience, he's still nowhere near the league of a warrior like this. The entire guild watches in awe as Jet Black prepares to take his leave, leaving a trail of questions in his wake. As Jet Black walks out, Garag can't help but feel a sense of both dread and excitement for what's to come. The local hunters huddle together, their faces pale as they discuss the sheer aura of the man who just left. One of them sighs in disbelief, wondering how someone so powerful could have remained hidden for so long. A woman hunter shivers as she imagines what it would be like to stand on the wrong side of Jet Black's blade. Her companion looks down at his hand, perhaps realizing how far he still has to go to reach that level. Others can only smile at the thought of having such a reliable powerhouse on their side of the law. Elsewhere, Nina and Marie are already making their own plans, their eyes filled with a new kind of determination. The image of the Dark Knight remains burned into their memories, a beacon of hope in a world of villains. Far from the guild, Kai looks up at the night sky, ready to face whatever new challenges his secret identity brings. Kai walks out of the Hunters Guild, trying to play it cool while the guildmaster waves him off with a smile. But inside that heavy armor, the guy is actually sweating bullets. He practically runs right into Marie Ansage, a silver-haired sister of the church, out on a stroll with her guards. Being surrounded by church folks makes Kai feel like he's under some kind of red-eyed microscope. The guildmaster recalls how Kai used to talk just as rough as he looks, which really doesn't help the nerves. He just lets out a tired sigh, wishing he could catch a break from all the attention. A fancy carriage rolls up right in front of him, and Kai stands there waiting to see who's inside. The door flies open, and Karen Dior Aldi, a fiery girl with red pigtails, practically leaps out to greet him. Kai spots the Duke's coat of arms on the carriage and realizes things are about to get complicated. Karen looks at him, clearly surprised and a bit flustered to be face to face with him again. Kai puts his hands up, trying to keep the situation casual and non-threatening. She huffs and turns away with a blush, still acting a bit stubborn. Next thing he knows, she's clinging to his arm, while the guildmaster just watches and laughs in the background. Inside the carriage, the conversation turns to how only someone like him could have pulled off such a miracle. Then steps in Liffy, an elegant noblewoman with long red hair and a signature blue bow. Liffy makes quite the entrance, stepping out with the grace you'd expect from a highborn lady. Kai is genuinely surprised to see her personally coming out to meet him. She greets him with a serene smile that looks almost angelic in the bright light. Liffy's smile is warm, but it carries the weight of someone who knows exactly how valuable Kai is to her family. She stands with her younger sister Karen, both of them staring up at their armored savior. Kai just stands there, probably wondering how his quiet life got turned into a noble social event. Liffy informs him that his schedule is already booked solid with noble obligations. Karen looks ready to fight for his attention, while Liffy just watches with an amused expression. The noble pressure is starting to get to Kai again, and it shows. The two sisters share a devious little grin, clearly planning to keep him all to themselves. Karen grabs one of his arms and refuses to let go, looking up at him with pure adoration. Liffy takes the other, mentioning they've prepared an incredibly comfortable carriage for his trip. Kai is stuck between the two of them, looking like he wants to disappear right into his armor. Liffy continues to be the picture of elegance and poise through the whole ordeal. He just crosses his arms, resigned to the fact that he's being pampered by nobility whether he likes it or not. Karen looks him dead in the eye, getting very serious about the debt they owe him. All the attention and noble drama is making Kai's head spin. She starts huffing and puffing, getting herself all worked up with determination. Kai tries to calm her down with a hand gesture before she does something drastic. She asks if he really used those legendary universal elixirs on them items that are basically priceless. Karen looks down, feeling the massive weight of the sacrifice he made for her. Kai is just confused why everyone thinks a few items are such a big deal. She leans in close, practically begging him to understand the impact of his actions. Liffy watches the scene with a shocked expression, seeing just how much her sister has fallen for him. For a second, we see Kai's real face behind the visor he's genuinely lost as to why they're so emotional. He tries to explain that it wasn't a big deal to him, but it's not getting through. To these girls, he looks like a literal saint surrounded by flowers, radiating a pure and holy aura. Karen and Liffy are still completely mesmerized by his supposed saintly aura. They get settled into the carriage, Karen finally calming down now that she's right next to her hero. Kai just sits there in his heavy suit of armor, probably wishing he could crack a window for some air. The sisters can't take their eyes off him, like they're trying to see right through that helmet. Under all that metal, Kai is doing his best to maintain his cool and mysterious persona. Something he says catches them off guard, and both of them let out a gasp of surprise. Karen looks like she just heard the most mind-blowing secret of the century. Meanwhile, the rest of the city is just going about its business, totally unaware of who's in the carriage. Chibi-Kai is sweating bullets, feeling the heavy weight of being stuck with two high-born ladies. Liffy looks thoughtful, her gears turning, as she tries to figure out the man behind the mask. Karen stays focused, her intense gaze showing she's hanging on his every word. In her chibi form, Karen starts wagging her finger, probably giving him a lecture on how amazing he is. Liffy gives a small, elegant smile, clearly enjoying the air of mystery surrounding him. Their carriage rolls through the town, making a chibi Karen head float around in excitement. Kai just looks ahead, trying his best to look like a stoic warrior of legend. Liffy covers a giggle with her hand, finding his awkwardness or humility charming. Karen gets all flustered, her face matching the vibrant red of her hair. To these two, even his most basic movements look like something straight out of a fairy tale. Liffy's smile is radiant, showing off that noble grace she was raised with. Kai crosses his arms, leaning back into the seat, as if he's perfectly at ease. Karen turns away, a deep blush creeping onto her face from just being near him. They start imagining him as some high-level operative, with the backing of the Emperor himself. Or maybe he's a selfless saint who only wants gold to fund his secret charity work. In reality, he just wants to buy better items for the game, but he's not about to tell them that. Liffy is practically glowing with admiration, her respect for him hitting a new peak. Kai raises a hand to his helmet, probably getting a massive headache from all these crazy theories. His armor is literally dripping with stress as the girls keep talking him up as a living legend. Karen suddenly starts shouting, getting all worked up about some minor detail. Liffy just laughs it off, totally used to her sister's high-energy outbursts. Kai sits there like a tired dad, waiting for the pigtail-wearing whirlwind to calm down. They think back to when they offered him a luxury villa and the official ducal family seal. It was a massive reward, but he didn't seem interested in the status at all. Looking at Karen now, it's hard to believe how sick and weak she used to be before he stepped in. Liffy looks out with a peaceful smile, fully convinced he's the most selfless man alive. Karen excitedly suggests they head to the guild next to see what other miracles he's performed. Kai just nods, his stoic armored form hiding the fact that he's internally screaming. They're convinced that his preference for gold is just proof that he's helping the poor in secret. Liffy wonders if there's anyone else in the entire world with a heart as noble as his. Her heart skips a beat as she stares at him, completely and utterly smitten. Kai's helmet doesn't give anything away, but he's definitely feeling the social fatigue. Liffy smiles back at him, her eyes full of warmth and a bit of mischievous curiosity. Looking out the window, the city looks quiet and peaceful as their carriage continues its journey. Liffy falls into a deep silence, her mind spinning with thoughts about the mysterious man in black armor. She envisions his hand reaching out to the helpless, seeing him as a symbol of salvation for the entire city. The more she thinks about his selfless deeds, the more her heart swells with a mix of awe and affection. Kai is completely oblivious to the legendary hero status they've given him, just focusing on keeping his balance in the heavy armor. The carriage comes to a halt in front of a sprawling, luxurious mansion, the seat of the sisters' noble family. The estate's head maid and head guard are already there, standing at attention to welcome them home. Even though he's a bit intimidated by the massive manor, Kai maintains his stoic, silent demeanor as he steps out. Liffy can't hide her happiness, beaming with a radiant smile as she prepares to enter her home with her hero. Kai shows off his gentlemanly side, offering an armored hand to help Liffy step down from the carriage. Liffy takes his hand, her face flushing as she looks up at the mysterious knight with sheer adoration. Karen is just as excited, practically skipping out of the carriage as she takes her turn to be helped down. The head maid and head guard observe the scene, intrigued by the powerful warrior their ladies have brought home. The head maid adjusts her spectacles, her sharp gaze taking in every detail of Kai's formidable armor. Karen turns to the estate staff and thanks them for their help, her cheerful energy lighting up the courtyard. She then looks back at Kai, her expression shifting to one of deep, heartfelt appreciation for everything he's done. Liffy seems to catch a glimpse of something that surprises her, her hand moving to her chest in a soft gesture. Under the helmet, Kai is feeling the immense pressure of all these formal introductions and high society vibes. He turns to address the head guard, likely hoping to finish whatever business brought him here as quickly as possible. Without warning, Kai pulls out a sword and presents it, causing the head guard to stiffen in shock. Karen looks on with wide, worried eyes, wondering why the mood suddenly became so tense. Kai simply hands the blade over to the guard, a direct and unexpected gesture from someone of his supposed status. The head guard is completely flustered, struggling to find the right words as he accepts the weapon from the legendary knight. The two sisters and the head maid watch the exchange, amused by how much Kai's simple actions can rattle people. The guard quickly regains his composure, his face turning determined as he treats the interaction like a sacred honor. Kai stands firm, the sunlight reflecting off his black plating as he continues to play the part of the invincible warrior. Internally, he's laughing at the irony, remembering his failed attempt to train as a human where he couldn't even swing a sword right. He slams his fists together with a heavy metallic clank, knowing that in this world, his armor is his only true protection. Inside the manor, a man with fiery hair sits upon a grand throne, his eyes shadowed as he pondered the monster who saved his daughters. Kai's got a new toy, a glowing blue sword that looks incredibly powerful. The only problem is the luck stat, which the system has labeled as completely variable. Kai just stares at his hand, hoping his luck doesn't run out when he actually needs it. Over in the ducal garden, Liffy is taking a walk with one of her personal guards. She's got a look on her face that says she's definitely up to no good. The girl is absolutely hyped up about something, and she isn't hiding it well. Her guard just laughs, clearly used to her high energy and wild ideas. He draws his sword, the polished blade reflecting his focused expression. Liffy leans in close, inspecting the steel like she's looking for a flaw. He starts showing her the proper way to grip the hilt for maximum control. She takes hold of the sword, looking like she's ready to take on the world. But then things get weird. The guard looks like he just saw a ghost. The sword suddenly drops and buries itself deep into the stone floor. Everyone just stops and stares at the blade stuck in the ground. They all look completely stunned by the sheer weight of the thing. The blade just sits there, still giving off a faint blue glow. The guard tries to pull it out, but it's like it's become part of the pavement. Marie eventually joins them, talking about how Jet Black is basically on another level. She's got this calm, knowing smile that usually means she's one step ahead. They move the talk inside to a much more private and comfortable room. It's a massive library, the kind of place where serious, noble business happens. Liffy's expression goes from excited to deeply concerned in a second. She thinks about her father, the Duke, and the pressure he's putting on her. The girl looks like she's about to have a full-on breakdown over the family's reputation. She's trying to figure out Kai's endgame, but nothing he does makes sense to her. Marie just watches her spiral, looking as relaxed as if she's on vacation. Liffy isn't buying the saint act, convinced there's a much darker secret. She starts getting all teary-eyed thinking about the massive rewards Kai turned down. It's actually painful for her to think about someone rejecting that much money. In her head, Kai is this untouchable figure that's way too powerful to be real. Marie just laughs at her, finding the whole saint theory much more likely. She tells Leafy that maybe the guy is just genuinely a good person. But Leafy isn't having it. She's sure the Vertar organization is pulling the strings. They keep going back and forth. Two noble ladies debating the mystery of one man. Liffy is practically lecturing now, throwing her hands around to emphasize her point. They look over the official paperwork one more time, still completely baffled. Marie points out that even the most powerful people in the kingdom are starting to panic. She finds the idea of the Duke being scared of Kai's humility absolutely hilarious. Liffy just sighs and gives up, realizing she's never going to win this argument. She peeks at Marie, trying to figure out if she's really that naive or just playing along. You can practically see the sparks between them as they refuse to back down. Marie finishes with a tired sigh, happy to let the mystery of the armored saint grow. Liffy is practically fumes, clearly exhausted from the meeting she just had. She lets out a frustrated yell, her fists clenched as she tries to handle the pressure. Back in the formal room, Kai sits across from a nervous red-haired nobleman and his wife. The couple shares a panicked glance, sweating as they try to keep up with the conversation. Kai's armored form is naturally terrifying, especially when he's just sitting there in silence. The nobleman clenches his hands together, his mind racing to figure out his next move. Kai makes a simple gesture of modesty, but to them, it only reinforces his status as a legendary figure. The red-haired noble looks down, his face a mask of worry, as he carefully considers his words. In their eyes, Kai is a man who can turn down an entire mansion and piles of gold without a second thought. Both of them bow their heads in a sign of total submission and respect. They imagine the terrifying, high-level backing that someone like Kai must have. To the world, he's a selfless hero surrounded by a bright, holy aura of benevolence. The nobleman finally seems to break, hanging his head as he realizes he can't buy Kai's loyalty. The two of them stare at him with wide, trembling eyes, absolutely captivated by his presence. Kai's mask is impossible to read, a complete stone wall that gives nothing away. He politely waves them off, having no idea he's just successfully intimidated a major house. The noble's face is tight with stress, a single bead of sweat rolling down his forehead. To him, the armored saint is a dark, overwhelming power that he must never cross. He looks at his family's crest, now forever linked to this mysterious, powerful stranger. He gives a small, humble smile, finally beginning to relax after the initial shock. Kai thinks about the life-saving elixir he used, reminding them to stay vigilant and protect their family. The nobles break into genuine, relieved smiles, as if a massive weight has just been lifted. Kai looks back at them, confused as to why they're suddenly so happy after all that tension. He adjusts his helmet, feeling the awkwardness of the silence more than ever. The noble woman is practically beaming, her face flushed with a newfound sense of safety. The red-haired man holds up 3 fingers, likely laying out the rewards Kai actually agreed to take. Under the helmet, Kai's real face is a picture of pure, unfiltered confusion. The couple continues to laugh and celebrate their alliance while Kai sits there, totally lost. The nobleman narrows his eyes, still trying to find some deeper, darker meaning in Kai's simplicity. They reach out for a handshake, a formal deal that Kai thinks is just a simple goodbye. Kai's helmet practically turns red from social embarrassment as he tries to keep his cool. The nobleman looks at him with pure adoration, convinced he's just met the world's most humble man. Kai raises a hand, probably trying to tell them it's really not that big of a deal. The man just chuckles and shakes his head, completely won over by the saint's modesty. The woman gives him one last admiring look over her shoulder as they start to wrap things up. Kai gives a polite bow before leaving, unaware that his every move is being dissected for hidden meaning. They watch him walk out, their hearts full of respect for the man who saved their daughter. The nobleman's hand is still shaking slightly from the sheer intensity of the meeting. He leans back into the sofa and rubs his face, completely exhausted by the psychological battle. Meanwhile, Leafy is back in the picture, looking at Kai like she's about to start some more trouble. She leans in close, her face flushed, as she tries to grill him for more information. Kai just points at himself with a confused finger, wondering why the noble family is so obsessed with him. Liffy gives a warm, polite smile, the image of Grace after the intense meeting with her family. Sitting across from Kai, Liffy and Karen Dior Aldi watch him with varying degrees of curiosity. Karen looks a bit more skeptical, her eyes narrowing as she tries to read the man behind the mask. Under the heavy helmet, Kai is actually sweating, his mind racing with a million questions. He can't help but crack a nervous, awkward smile that nobody can even see from outside. He remembers the shopkeeper's enthusiastic cheers, a memory that only adds to his feeling of being out of place. Liffy looks slightly embarrassed, a faint blush on her cheeks as the silence drags on. She places a hand on her chest, her expression softening into one of genuine concern. Kai's internal world is a mess of coins and property deeds, completely overwhelmed by the gifts he's received. He gives a small cough into his fist, trying to clear the air and act like he has things under control. Both women give him a blank, confused look, clearly not expecting him to be this socially awkward. Liffy lets out a cheerful laugh, while Karen remains a bit more reserved and observant. Karen's face suddenly tightens with shock, her mouth open as she hears something completely unexpected. She stares at the luxurious villa, her eyes wide as she processes the scale of the gift. Karen is practically vibrating with surprise, while Kai just sits there looking like he wants the ground to swallow him. In his mind, he imagines them as some kind of elite secret service, decked out in suits and armed to the teeth. Liffy raises a hand, trying to explain the situation calmly, while Karen still looks totally floored. Kai gives a low, nervous hum from behind his visor, feeling more like a prisoner than a saint. On the table, the tea remains untouched, reflecting the stagnant, heavy atmosphere of the room. Both girls lean in, their faces pale with shock, as Kai says something typically humble but terrifying to them. They exchange a stunned glance, their eyes practically popping out of their heads at his words. Kai leans back, gesturing to the room around him as he tries to downplay his accomplishments. Karen is suddenly all smiles, her face bright and her expression much friendlier than before. Kai gives a slow, thoughtful nod, his helmet bobbing as he finally starts to find his rhythm. Outside, the grand villa stands as a testament to the ducal house's immense gratitude and power. Lifey waves goodbye with a cheerful promise to visit soon, her heart clearly lightened by the meeting. A massive estate sits under a clear blue sky, looking every bit the high-end noble residence it is. Inside, the kitchen is spotless and grand, looking more like a showroom than a place for actual cooking. The dining hall is just as fancy, set up perfectly for a formal and likely tense meeting. Kai walks in as jet black, the clank of his heavy armor echoing through the room as he greets Marie and Karen. Karen looks a bit flustered as he enters, her eyes following him as he moves through the room. He takes a seat on the couch, trying to maintain his cool and stoic adventurer persona. Marie and Karen sit across from him, both of them watching his every move with intense curiosity. Kai leans back and lets out a long, weary sigh. Being the center of attention is exhausting work. Karen crosses her arms and gives him a questioning look, her face starting to heat up for some reason. She starts shouting at him, her face turning beet red as she vents some hidden frustration. She's practically fuming now, while he just sits there, probably wondering what he did to set her off. Marie just sits back with a calm, amused smile, clearly enjoying the drama between her sister and the knight. Kai laughs, trying to lighten the mood after Karen's sudden outburst. In his head, he's giving himself a pat on the back for handling the situation, at least he thinks he did. He keeps a genuine, if hidden, smile under his helmet as he tries to keep things friendly. Without a word, he reaches out and gives Karen a sudden, firm pat on the head. She freezes instantly, her eyes going wide as her brain completely short-circuits. Karen just sits there, dazed and stunned by the unexpected affection from the mysterious knight. Marie starts giggling into her hand. She definitely wasn't expecting him to pull a move like that. Karen looks up at him with wide, sparkly eyes. It looks like the head pat was incredibly effective. She flashes back to the night they first met at the clock tower, the moment that started it all. Kai goes for another head pat, clearly realizing he's found a way to keep her quiet. Karen's face is absolutely scarlet now. She's completely lost her cool. She starts flailing her arms around, trying to play it off while her brain is clearly melting from embarrassment. Marie cuts in, her expression turning a bit more serious as they get back to the matter at hand. Kai raises a hand, probably trying to turn down yet another insane reward the family is offering. He explains that he doesn't need any special treatment, which of course, they take as a sign of his absolute humility. He gives Karen one more pat on the head, which effectively shuts her down for good. She's still pouting internally, but she's not putting up a fight anymore. Marie watches them with a gentle smile. She's starting to understand why everyone is so drawn to him. Karen looks up, surprised by something Kai just mentioned about his preferences. A noble steps in, offering Kai anything his heart desires in exchange for his continued help. Marie and Karen both lean in, curious to see how the legendary Jet Black will handle this new offer. Karen starts thinking about the other girls who are constantly hanging around him. She pictures Nina and Remy, realizing she's got some serious competition in the saintly girl department. She turns away, feeling a bit pouty about the whole situation. Marie notices her sister's reaction and starts teasing her again, waving her hands around. The room goes quiet for a moment as the two girls share a meaningful look. Karen suddenly gasps, probably realizing just how deep she's actually fallen for the guy. She hides her face in her hands, completely overwhelmed by the sudden realization of her feelings. Kai just sits there in silence, wondering why everyone is acting so strange all of a sudden. Marie looks on, realizing that her sister is officially and completely a goner. Kai, still as Jet Black, shakes his head firmly. He's clearly not interested in whatever grand reward they're trying to push on him. He flashes back for a second to a vision of the past, or maybe he's just imagining what a normal, noble life would even look like. Marie laughs it off, probably realizing that trying to buy his favor with money and status is a lost cause. Karen sits beside him, looking a bit more comfortable now that the formal business is finally out of the way. She starts rambling about her plans, looking adorable as she tries to act like a proper, dignified lady. Then she suddenly gets embarrassed again, hiding her face in her hands. She's definitely the emotional type of the two. Kai just watches her, probably wondering how he ended up babysitting two high-ranking nobles in his spare time. He gives her another reassuring pat on the head, which has become his go-to move for calming her down. Marie and Karen share a quiet moment, finally accepting that he's not going to take their gift, no matter how much it's worth. Marie reaches out, her gloved hand resting on his armored one, in a small, sincere gesture of gratitude. The three of them sit there for a while longer, the tension in the room finally starting to fade into something more relaxed. Marie looks at him with a soft, knowing expression. She's seen right through his humble hero act, but she doesn't mind. She mentions the ducal family seal, the one he rejected without a second thought. To anyone else, that's like turning down a kingdom. The conversation finally wraps up, and it's time for them to head out before it gets too late. Marie stands up and smooths her dress, preparing to leave the estate with her sister. Kai waves them off as they head toward their carriage. He's just glad he can finally have some peace and quiet. The girls wave back, Karen still looking a bit flustered from all the attention she received. Their carriage rolls away, disappearing into the sunset as Kai watches them from the courtyard. Once they're gone, Kai finally takes a breath. Being the legendary Jet Black is even more tiring than he expected. He thinks back to their smiles, realizing that despite the headache, he's glad he could help them out. Marie, now in the carriage, is still wearing that satisfied smile, her mind full of their meeting. She starts thinking about the night, her eyes sparkling as she recounts the whole encounter to herself. Karen, on the other hand, is looking unusually serious as they ride along the country road. She remembers when she was just a prisoner, sickly and hopeless, before Kai saved her with that potion. She pictures him in his regular clothes, the simple, unassuming adventurer who changed her entire life. Marie looks over at her sister, noticing the sudden change in her mood and expression. The carriage ride is quiet, as both girls get lost in their own thoughts about the mysterious knight who saved them. Karen looks at a drawing she made, a simple picture showing how much she values their bond. She looks out the window, watching the estate fade into the distance as they get further away. Marie watches her sister, probably realizing that Karen is far more attached to him than she lets on. Meanwhile, Kai is already thinking about his next move. He can't stay in one place for too long if he wants to stay anonymous. Marie calls out to her sister, trying to snap her out of her daze with a playful little nudge. She gives her a mischievous look, clearly about to start the teasing all over again. Karen just looks back at her, her expression still a bit somber and thoughtful about the future. Marie leans back, her mind wandering to the rewards he turned down. She still can't believe he rejected a whole villa. They continue their journey, the carriage rattling along the stone road as the sun begins to set. Marie looks out the window, her expression turning a bit more pensive as she thinks about Kai. She imagines him standing on the balcony, watching them go from a distance. In her mind, he's always looking stoic and dependable, the hero she can always count on to be there. She smiles again, clearly finding the whole situation more amusing than anything else. She remembers the first time he gave them those potions. That was the moment their fate was truly sealed together. Back at the estate, Kai is still in his armor, probably already planning his next escape from all this noble drama. Marie looks away, her face tinged with a slight blush as she loses herself in her thoughts about the mysterious night. Back at his own place, Kai finally pulls off his heavy helmet with a sigh of relief. "Guess I'll take a shower," he mutters, ready to leave the jet black persona behind for a while. Inside the carriage, Marie's heart begins to race. The memory of the night's presence is clearly having a stronger effect on her than she anticipated. Karen watches her sister's strange, silent behavior with a mix of curiosity and growing concern. In a comedic mental image, Marie is completely swept away by the romanticized legend of her savior, while a skeptical Karen looks on in disbelief. She clutches her chest, her face turning a deep shade of crimson as her heart continues to thud loudly in her ears. Both sisters are clearly affected by the encounter, each processing their newfound admiration for the knight in their own way. Karen looks down, her own face heating up as she tries to hide just how much the master has impressed her. Marie remains deep in thought, a nervous sweat on her brow as she tries to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions inside her. Karen suddenly puffs out her cheeks in a huff, her face turning bright red with embarrassment. "Are you—" she starts, probably ready to tease her sister back. LD's pub is usually a quiet spot, but lately it's been getting way too much attention for its own good. Inside, the shopkeeper is busy cleaning up, though he's clearly on edge. He keeps casting nervous glances at Kai, who's just trying to finish his steak at the bar. The guy forces a smile, acting like having a legendary knight in his shop is no big deal. He tries to strike up some small talk, but his voice is shaking like crazy. Kai doesn't say much, just keeps focusing on his meal and trying to ignore the awkward vibes. The shopkeeper looks like he's about to have a heart attack when Kai finally looks his way. He starts stammering, probably worried that he's accidentally offended a high-ranking hero. His eyes go wide in shock as Kai answers him with total nonchalance. Kai keeps it casual, but in this guy's head, he's already imagining him as a secret agent for the high nobility. To the shopkeeper, Kai is basically on the same level as the most powerful men in the empire. Outside, the rest of the town is bustling, completely oblivious to the drama inside the pub. The shopkeeper points out something nearby, his hand trembling like a leaf. Kai lets out a tired sigh, looking like he just wants to finish his lunch in peace. He reaches into his armor and drops a heavy bag of coins onto the counter to settle the bill. The shopkeeper stares at the bag, looking too terrified to even reach for it. Kai keeps his head down, clearly hating the fact that he stands out so much. The guy starts waving his hands in a panic, insisting that the payment is way too high. He looks completely stunned, standing there with his arms crossed and his mind racing. Kai turns to leave, giving a brief wave that the shopkeeper barely manages to return. As soon as the knight turns around, the shopkeeper starts shivering from the leftover adrenaline. He watches Kai walk away, his heart still pounding in his chest. His brain is practically short-circuiting as he tries to process the whole encounter. Kai stops to pull his helmet back on, slipping back into his jet black persona. He heads out the door while the shopkeeper gives him one last shaky farewell. The guy immediately ducks behind the counter to check the contents of the bag Kai left. He peeks inside and is nearly blinded by the shimmer of pure gold coins. His jaw drops. It's a fortune just for a steak and eggs. He's left feeling like a jerk, forever thinking Kai was anything but a saint. Meanwhile, over at the Holy Church, things are a lot less quiet today. Nina is squishing her own cheeks together, looking like she's in a total trance. Marie catches her acting weird and moves in for a closer look. Nina snaps out of it instantly, looking like she was just caught doing something embarrassing. Marie puts on her stern face, demanding to know what's got her sister so distracted. Nina starts sweating, trying to act like she was just contemplating holy matters. She flops down on a bench, letting out a long, dramatic sigh. She tries to look all elegant and composed, but the flush on her face gives her away. She starts glowing with a radiant smile, clearly thinking about her savior again. Marie isn't buying it and continues to grill her about her strange behavior. She even pinches Nina's cheek to snap her out of her daydream. But Nina just goes right back to it, leaning on her hand with a dreamy look in her eyes. Her friends have never seen her this obsessed before, and they know things are about to get complicated. Nina stares off into space, her mind clearly stuck on a certain legendary knight. She can still see the magical elixir he used to heal her eyes, floating in her memories like a miracle. Marie notices her sister is completely lost in thought and tries to bring her back to earth. But Nina just starts blushing, a dreamy smile spreading across her face as she remembers his kindness. She thinks about the prestigious ducal seal that was offered to him as a reward for his deeds. In her mind, Kai is basically a superstar, surrounded by adoring fans who are just as obsessed as she is. The mere thought of him makes her turn bright red, her face practically puffing up from the excitement. Marie can only sigh, watching her sister fall deeper and deeper into this little crush. Nina clasps her hands to her chest, her eyes shimmering with pure, unadulterated gratitude. The two sisters continue their walk through the church grounds, with Nina looking more cheerful than ever. These are the entourage sisters, two women who have dedicated their lives to divine service. But even for them, the jet black knight has become a figure of absolute heroism. Suddenly, Nina looks a bit distressed, as if she's just realized how much she owes him. Liffy approaches the bench, noticing Nina looks like she's about to have a minor breakdown. Nina quickly tries to laugh it off, though the sweat on her face tells a different story. The two of them share a lighthearted moment, their laughter echoing through the garden. They take a seat on the bench together, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of the church. But the conversation quickly turns serious as Nina looks down, her expression full of worry. Liffy listens intently, her expression softening as Nina pours her heart out about the night. Nina gestures wildly, trying to explain just how incredible his actions really were. She eventually lets out a long, dramatic sigh, looking like she's carrying the weight of the world. Liffy just gives her a forced smile, clearly finding Nina's level of obsession a bit much. She remembers how kind he was even to little Karen, carrying the girl on his back like a big brother. Nina winks, looking like she's got a secret plan to show her appreciation one of these days. Liffy looks thoughtful, her eyes drifting toward the sky as she considers the knight's mysterious nature. She explains that her family was ready to give him everything: a villa, a title, and total protection. Nina's eyes go wide. She can't believe anyone would just walk away from an offer like that. For most people, a reward like that is the ultimate goal, something that would secure their future forever. But as Leafy points out, Kai didn't seem interested in any of the fame or the prestige. He turned down the luxury and the status, choosing to take nothing but a simple bag of gold coins. To a noble house like Liffy's, rejecting their crest is a major statement of independence. Nina looks completely baffled, her brain struggling to understand why he would be so humble. She starts waving her hands around, wondering if he even realizes what he's given up. Liffy gets all flustered just talking about it, her face turning pink from the sheer absurdity of the situation. They both lean in, trying to piece together the logic of a man who rejects a literal mansion. Nina clasps her hands together again, her eyes full of concern for the knight's humble lifestyle. Liffy lets out a playful laugh, finding it ironic that a hero would be so focused on just getting paid. She explains that her father was absolutely stunned when he heard the news. Her entire family is still trying to figure out if he's a saint, a fool, or just someone who hates paperwork. Nina looks a bit skeptical, wondering if there's a deeper, more hidden reason for his choice. Leafy just chuckles, enjoying the confusion that the mysterious knight has left in his wake. But deep down, Nina is just more impressed than ever by the man who saved her. Liffy looks at Nina, who seems to be deep in another one of her passionate explanations about the knight. In the serene courtyard, a pair of white doves take flight, mirroring the peaceful atmosphere of their talk. Nina continues talking animatedly, while Liffy just watches with a look of mild concern for her friend's sanity. Nina leans forward, her expression turning serious as she discusses the incredible selflessness of his recent choices. She imagines how his name has become legendary among the common folk, his deeds worth more than any pile of gold. To her, his every gesture is proof of a truly noble and selfless heart that expects nothing in return. Liffy smiles warmly, finally starting to see why Nina has become so completely enamored with this jet black character. She pictures him standing tall with his blade, a vision of pure, heroic power and unwavering grace. The two friends sit quietly for a moment, the weight of their long conversation settling over the bench. Suddenly, Nina turns into a blushing, chibi-like mess, her face redder than Liffy's vibrant hair. Both girls end up in a heated, slightly embarrassing exchange, their voices rising as they debate his virtues. Later on, Nina is seen walking through the courtyard with young Karen, the red-haired girl she's grown close to. Karen listens as Nina continues her endless praise, though she looks a bit more skeptical than Liffy was. Nina clutches her wooden staff, her eyes downcast as she reflects on the depth of her own gratitude. Karen points a finger, reminding Nina of the knight's imposing and mysterious presence during the rescue. Nina looks up with a look of pure, starry-eyed devotion, her small chibi form radiating absolute sincerity. Karen can only sweat drop, wondering if Nina will ever manage to stop talking about the mysterious hero. Despite their different perspectives, the two of them share a laugh, enjoying a peaceful moment on the bench. In her mind's eye, Nina sees the knight as a literal beacon of light, a savior who emerged from the darkness. She blushes deeply, her hand grazing her chin as she gets completely lost in the fantasy once again. Suddenly, she stands up with a burst of energy, her eyes glowing with a sudden and powerful determination. Karen is left sitting alone on the bench, completely baffled by Nina's sudden shift in mood and energy. She just blinks in confusion, a series of question marks hovering around her head as she watches Nina go. Kai strolls through town, humming a tune while everyone gives him a wide berth. Inside the pub, a high-ranking nun is busy grilling the staff. The shopkeeper is sweating bullets under her intense questioning. He tries his best to answer, but the pressure is clearly getting to him. Kai stops in his tracks, realizing he might have just walked into a mess. Seeing his chance, the shopkeeper immediately points Kai out as his backup. A quick look at the menu reveals Kai usually just orders whatever he's in the mood for. The shopkeeper explains his dining habits to Nina, who's listening intently. Kai just stands there, wishing he could disappear into the floor. This whole situation is definitely not the quiet lunch he had planned. He reluctantly steps further into the shop to deal with the situation. The shopkeeper begs the nuns to give him a break for just a second. Nina settles into her seat, her eyes fixed on her mysterious savior. The three of them take their places at the counter, creating a pretty weird atmosphere. Kai is sweating buckets under his helmet, wondering how he got roped into this. Nina gets a bit emotional, her face turning bright red as she talks. From behind the bar, the shopkeeper keeps a close eye on the awkward trio. He's just glad the heat is finally off him for a moment. Kai tries to calm Nina down, holding up a hand as she looks like she might cry. She smiles back at him, looking like a literal saint in the light. It's clear she's incredibly happy to finally see the man who saved her. Kai puts his hands up, trying to keep things casual despite the holy aura. Nina isn't holding back, speaking with a lot of passion and energy. The shopkeeper hides in the back, watching the drama unfold from a safe distance. Nina glances back at the staff, making sure they aren't listening too closely. The shopkeeper frantically waves his hands, promising he didn't hear a thing. Kai looks over at the bodyguard, who's been silent this whole time. Nina strikes a pose, clearly proud of her new look and restored health. Kai takes a moment to think, resting his chin on his gauntlet. Nina keeps that sweet smile on her face while her bodyguard stays stern in the back. You can practically feel the annoyance radiating off the bodyguard's visor. Kai feels the tension rising and starts to sweat even more. Suddenly, Nina leans right into his space, her eyes glowing with intensity. Kai lets out a small sigh of relief, glad things haven't completely exploded yet. Nina looks away bashfully, her cheeks still flushed from the proximity. Kai tells her to just lift her head and act normal for now. The shopkeeper brings over the food, looking happy to finally serve his customers. Nina's eyes light up at the massive plate in front of her. They all dig in, though the dynamic at the table is still pretty stiff. Nina keeps the conversation going, looking more relaxed with every bite. The bodyguard is caught off guard by something Nina says, looking completely shocked. Nina just blushes and keeps talking, leaving her guard flustered and confused. Kai feels the weight of the awkward atmosphere as they sit down to eat. Nina and her bodyguard bow their heads to say a quick prayer over the food. Nina looks up with a warm blush, her eyes glowing with happiness. Inside his armor, Kai is absolutely sweating, feeling like he's under a microscope. The shopkeeper looks pretty irritated, pointing at Kai as if he's the source of all his stress. Nina just giggles at the tension, finding the whole thing quite charming. Kai puts his hands together in a silent plea for the shopkeeper to just act normal. The shopkeeper's expression shifts to one of pure worry as he looks at the high-ranking nuns. Kai knows he's walking a fine line between his secret life and this public role. He gestures towards the meal to change the subject, catching Nina off guard. The shopkeeper is practically vibrating with anxiety in the background. Kai offers a friendly word, though the shopkeeper still looks like he's expecting trouble. The two of them turn back to the table as Nina starts to get serious. She reaches up to touch her necklace, clearly gathering her thoughts. Looking earnest and a bit nervous, she starts to tell Kai what's really on her mind.